Namaste. So blissful, I didn't even want to ring the bell. So does anyone have anything you would like to share? Anything going on with you in your meditation? Or in your life, in your sadhana?
Ramana.
Okay. Really?
What's coming up for me is in the 3-4 weeks that I've been here so far, I realized I haven't a clue as to what I'm doing. I knew more before I got here than I do now. And at first I was saying, well, it's a cultural thing. Like, I don't know when to bow or to stand up or when to look or not look. Sort of like when I would go to church, everybody's sitting down, and then before I know it, everybody's kneeling, and I'm still sitting. And then when I get it that I'm to kneel, and I kneel, and then everybody sits. So it's that type of thing going on. I really don't know what I'm doing. And then it came to me in meditation that it's not important for me to know what I'm doing. What's important in being in conscious company, in being with a teacher such as yourself that's realized, is an opportunity. The opportunity is for me to abide. And if I take advantage of that opportunity to just abide, things that I need to know will be known. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because when I first got here, I had asked that I wanted to be open and vulnerable, and in every meeting that I had, I wanted it to be in consciousness, and I wanted it to be in truth. And I just wanted you to know where I am is I don't know. And it sort of feels good now, but it took a couple of weeks to get to understanding that it's okay. That's it.
Okay. Well, knowing that you don't know is a good place. Now, who is it that knows that you don't know? See, look to see if there's not still there, lurking there, a me that feels like I am not knowing. Just look and see. See, knowing it or not knowing, that in itself is a thought. But prior to knowing and not knowing is an awareness. Now this awareness neither knows nor not knows. So it's a very subtle, fine-tuned place to be in this observing, in which in the observing, it really doesn't matter whether this conceptualized me knows or doesn't know. Again, it's important, or what wants to happen, or what's significant to happen, is just the seeing that this awareness is nothing but just simple presence. And what is happening in any moment is just a registering on this presence, or in this presence of whatever it is that is appearing. Including the notion that I don't know anything. This presence is not a knower. This presence is just simple consciousness itself. In this consciousness itself, we can be conscious of what we see, perceive, hear, feel, what's occurring, what's going on, or thoughts that are happening, thoughts that are arising. The thoughts that arise only in this presence. Everything that is occurring in this presence, and it occurs in the instant moment. Even if we're considering something that has already occurred, that can only be considered as a thought, as a memory. But that thought, of that memory, can only occur in this instant. Any thought of anything that ever occurred in the past, that thought can only occur in this instant. Any anticipation of anything yet to occur in what is projected as the notion of a future, that's a thought also that can only occur in this instant. Abidance in this instant is consciousness. Consciousness, this abiding in this instant, is what we are. This that we are, which is just the thought I am in the mind, is not actually what we are, it's the awareness that we are. But the thought I am occurring in the mind is so close to that which we are, it's just a thought away from that which we are. And it is so simple that to the mind it seems like it's not enough. This image that I am, each one being aware as this awareness, has taken for granted the tendency of identification with the body. And this identification with the body, which is a form appearing is falsely assumed that this form that is appearing in this consciousness that is the self this object that is appearing in the consciousness that is the self has had projected on it, is projecting on it and identifying itself as a subject, as a seeing subject. It's not. It's an object. The seeing, the subject, is just this simple awareness that we are, that's this instant presence. There's always this instant presence, ever shining, registering everything that is occurring. The mind has entered in as the record of all these registrations of everything that is occurring. In the mind there is this sense of I, but the mind operates in this dual form, in contrasts, opposites, constant comparisons. I is contrasted with not I. So all these opposites that comprise mind, which is consciousness appearing in duality, all of this has been identified with, which is an activity that is occurring in this presence. But the presence is the self. This pure awareness itself is the self. Look to see to what extent this total record of collected or accumulated experiences that have been recorded as memory all the way back from the time the body was just an infinite. All this record of experiences that have been recorded in the mind since the body was an infant is all being called me. But this me is just a recording of all of this record of experience. That's all it is. It's not who we are, we're the awareness. The awareness itself has no beginning or ending. This record of experience had a beginning starting with the birth of the body. And the record of all the recording of the experiences of the body. And all of that is being identified with and called me. But this me is not an actual being. It's just a record of experience. And its reference point, its centering reference point is this sense of me, called I, but it's also a reference point that has in it all this other as well. Now, the accumulation of this and all of the collected knowing of this is itself the mind and is it. But the awareness prior to it is really the self. Actually, all that is required is just the simple seeing of this and seeing that the description is the description and that what is described is not the self. The self is the awareness, the simple presence that is just consciousness. And the truth is that there's no one to be realized. There's no other consciousness that is to be gained. There's only just the seeing of all of this. and that the consciousness that we are is the consciousness we've always been. There's only this one consciousness. But there seems to occur a misconception that there's supposed to be some kind of special consciousness. That we may have the attitude or the belief that I haven't attained it yet. And I'm waiting to attain it. And I sure hope, I really wish it would hurry up and get here. The truth is, it's already here. It was never not here. It's the only awareness that there is. And all that has to be seen is that this accumulation in consciousness, which is mind, this record of all of the experiences that have occurred, that are called me, this record of all the experiences that have happened to this body mind, and that are called me, is not the actual self, but it's just this record of experience. But there has been an imposing upon this awareness that we are, the awareness that actually is, this misconception that this body, mind, and this record of experience is who I am. There's nothing wrong in having the record. The record's very handy. The problem is that we've identified with it and called it me. All we have to do is see that we've identified with it and we're calling it me, and we're looking for something more, better, different, something special, something outstanding. And there is nothing more, better, or more outstanding. There's just what's going on. Now, on one hand, that may be a disappointment. On the other hand, it might, wow, that's all there is. And it's freedom. It's the freedom from the compulsion of looking for something more. And getting that this is it. There's nothing to be gotten. So I can let go of all this seeking to get something and enjoy what's at hand. What's always been at hand is always available. So why not just enjoy it? On the other hand, we look and see, is it a disappointment? I still feel like there's something more. But this is not enough. So I'm going to still keep looking for something more? That's often what happens.
Ramana, what appears to happen is that this record of experiences or my story seems to lose all of its substance just by being in conscious company. And then there's not any inclination to add anything to that. It's just okay the way it is.
Yes, it is okay the way it is. The truth is, it's always been okay the way it is. So the question rises up in all the traditions, the major traditions are called paths and ways of returning back to that which we seem to have left, that becomes a lifetime of a quest and return. And what a paradox is, we never left to begin with. The question might come up, well, what about desire? Well, what about it? If there's something that we desire, yes, on one hand you can say, as long as I'm desiring it, I'm disturbed because I don't have it. You just simply see that. Desire causes a disturbance in the mind. As long as there's a disturbance in the mind, there's not peace. If there's not peace in the mind, then there's not a sense of freedom. This agitation does not allow us to have a quality. It doesn't have a quality of contentment. Can there be a sense of contentment as long as there's a disturbance? And so we're wanting to be free of the disturbance, so we want to have contentment. Well, very simply, as long as there is a disturbance, there's not contentment, there's not peace. So what does it take, what does it require to return to a state of peace? It's very basic. We have forgotten that the prior awareness that we are is already at peace. We have identified with the mind that is wanting something. We have to look to see, is contentment or fulfillment of the desire more important? Now the mind's going to enter in and say, I'd like to have both. I'd like to have contentment and fulfillment of the desire. Just look. look at that. That's the ingredients we have to work with. All right, I have a desire, and I'm not contented as long as I have the desire. Is the contentment or the desire for contentment or the desire for fulfillment of the object of desire, which has precedence, which takes precedence? How can I have both? You can only have contentment and freedom from the desire when you do not have the disturbance going on in the mind that is caused by the desire. If you're caught into the compulsion for the object of the desire, you're not going to have contentment as long as you're caught in that identification. That's just a fact. You just have to see it. Doesn't make anything right or wrong. It's just a fact. Now, looking at consciousness, how does consciousness bring about objects of desire? Well, that occurs by just very simple processes of awakening in consciousness the equivalent of the desire, and let it be manifest. Let it come into manifestation. And that's what usually happens. Either through strong dissatisfaction because I don't have the object of desire until it becomes so intense that I finally draw it to me. But usually ignorance, you see, has entered in, the ignorance of forgetfulness of this whole process. If we could just abide in awareness, in the knowledge of the truth is that consciousness is what we are, consciousness is what I am, consciousness is what I've always been. I am not the body-mind, and there's nothing wrong in being the body-mind, and there's nothing wrong in the body having desires. That's not an evil thing just because we have the mind and the body has desires. It's not an evil thing. It's a very ordinary function. How do we bring about, then, this quality of contentment by having attained the object of desire so that I can rest again in the peace of the mind? Again, I just said it. It's very simple. Bring into existence the object of the desire as a manifestation, and do it legally, do it correctly, do it ethically, morally. It can be done. When that is accomplished, contentment now can occur. But the contentment, we must recognize, is not as a result of getting the object. The contentment is the result of the stopping of the desire. If we simply see that the contentment is the result of the ceasing of the desire for the object, remain in the contentment of the awareness itself, which is the natural state of the pure awareness of the self that we are, it's already contented. The lack of contentment is having identified with form, with the body and the mind as being me. That's the cause of the lack of contentment. If we simply get that, wait a minute, I've identified with the body and the mind, or with form, as being me, and the body-mind is an object. This is something that is perceptible. This is something that is there to be seen. And I have made this object subject. I've identified with the object and made it subject by saying it's me. It's not me. It's an object. The first thing that we see in the process of seeing is this body. It's an object. We see our chest, our torso. We don't see the head. Very basic. We've never seen our head, where all the thinking happens. We can't see where the thinking happens physically. We can only see where the thinking happens mentally. That's the mind. So we can see where the thinking happens, and we can see where the action happens. The action happens in the body. The thinking happens in the mind, in the head. And what we've done is we've called it me. We've taken this object that is an object, identified with it, and called it me, and now we're making it subject. We're making this object into subject and saying this subject now is me, and it's not. Prior to this object is the awareness that is aware of this object, and this awareness is the self. All we have to do is to get that the me, which has become identified with as a reference point in consciousness, and consciousness itself is universal, it has no center in it. But we have made this body a center, calling it me. And it's only a concept. It's only a reference point. Just see it. That's all. You don't have to do anything about it. Just get it. Get it without any further thought about it. Get it in this instant, because only this instant is real anyway. If we get it in this instant, and now we will go off into the reverie of considering it, we've now identified with it. And our identification with it is the problem. Don't identify with it as me. Just see it as an object. Recognize that its duration in existence is short-lived. That's part of the problem too. Its duration in existence is short-lived, and we would like to prolong it because we're identified with it. If we were to get It's not who I am. And it really, because it's not who I am, I'm prior to it. It's an object. It's there. It's only temporary in existence anyway. It really doesn't have anything to do with me that I am, the pure I am that I am. It's just a concept. It's just a reference point. I am the awareness. That it doesn't really matter how long it's going to exist. You see, we've identified with it, however, and in identifying with it and all the so-called others that we've identified with, we've created a scenario, a drama, a case history, a story, and we're identified with the story. We're identified with the case history. We're identified with the drama. And that's what we want to prolong. The character role that we're identified with, that's what we want to prolong. Well, the paradox of it is that's also the suffering. It doesn't have to be suffering. It can be delight. How can it be delight without suffering? Very simply, don't identify with it as me. It's what's going on. It's only temporary. Take what you get. As much as you have. Utilize what you also have available, to what extent you have acquired the ability to deal with it. And enjoy it. It's called be happy. The awareness that we are has always been around, but the self that we think we are has only been around for temporarily. Make the distinction between the awareness that we are that has always been around and the thought that we are that has only been around temporarily. And make the most of the thought that we are that has only been around temporarily and will only be around temporarily. Not losing sight of the awareness that we are that has always been around. When I say been around, it's always been this presence. Always been this awareness. It hasn't always been around as far as time is concerned. It's always been present, even long during the period that time has been here. But it's this making of this distinction between the body-mind, the self I think I am, which is the I sense, or the sense of me, the case history, and the pure awareness of being, the presence in which all of this is appearing. Get it? That this presence in which all of this is appearing is the self I am, and all that is appearing is only temporary. That's what I've identified with. Make the distinction between what I've identified with and that which I am, and live primarily in that which I am, only observing and enjoying that which I'm identified with. Nothing wrong with that. Just don't lose sight of the awareness as being the primordial, primal basis. And stay alert in this recognition, in this recognition, in this perception. If I remain alert to the truth, now all the scriptures come alive, see? The truth that sets us free, the peace that passes all understanding. Before time was, I am. We're already free, but we are not knowing that we're free, to what extent we are identified with the form, the body-mind, and the case history. How do you stay in this awareness? Conscious company is the easiest way. When you do not have the advantage of conscious company, then the next most direct way is inquiry. But the inquiry, when you don't have the advantage of conscious company, in order to keep the inquiry in the advantage of conscious company, in the full awareness that is occurring in conscious company, to have it when you don't have the conscious company in the environment is you have to create it. You have to sustain it. You have to maintain it. And the only way you can do that is to keep the inquiry constant. If you slip out of the inquiry back into the mind, into the body-mind identification, then the environment around you is going to hold you in time and in the appearance of this case history and everyone else that is involved, which is this dream, and the nature of that is suffering. It's not bad. It just hurts like hell. It's not wrong. It's just painful. And the only way to not succumb to the pain, to the suffering, is to stay alert and present in the awareness that always already is, not a new awareness, not a better awareness, not a different awareness, not a higher awareness, the only awareness there is. The only one there is. This present one. Now we have to look, see, know, and realize, am I choosing to be in this awareness that is happy, or to live at the effect of the body, mind, and suffer, and then blame anything and everything else for my own inadvertence. Because there ain't no one else doing it to me. There has never been anyone doing it to me. I have always been doing it to myself. There's a lot of things that I will do when I'm suffering that I wouldn't do otherwise. And none of them work other than being awake and aware to the true nature of the self I am. Not any method works, it's only temporary. Anything that we do in the scenario of the case history, which is the dream, anything we do in the dream, while we're still dreaming that the dream is real, as long as we're still identified with the body-mind as though it is me, anything that we do in that identification is not going to last and not going to bring reprieve from the suffering. Not anything. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in any of the things that we do that are just palliatives, temporary ways of dealing with it. All I'm saying is that nothing we do while we're identified with the body-mind as though we actually are the body-mind, as long as we're identified with time and space as though time and space are real, nothing that we do will give us permanent relief. Nothing. Have I said it? Nothing. The only thing that will give us permanent relief is awakening from this dream, or awakening to the fact that it is a dream, that the body-mind is not who I am, that time and space are not real, that the infinite and eternal awareness that I am is the only reality, and that will free me. For the nature of that awakened awareness is bliss. It's that which I'm otherwise seeking through all of the processes and strategies that I'm engaged in the dream itself. It doesn't matter what I'm engaged in the dream itself. It really doesn't matter. Whatever form it takes, whatever name I want to give it, whatever justification or rationalization that I may want to name it or give it, all that I'm doing is looking for freedom from the suffering. And nothing that I do to get free of the suffering is going to free me from the suffering except awakening to the true nature of the being that I am. Now, what are we going to do with this? We're going to see it, accept it, align ourselves in a perfect alignment with it, and live it consciously? Or we want to slip back off into unconsciousness, back into the suffering, and then to try to do something about the suffering from within the suffering? It's up to us. As long as I'm still caught up in identification with the body-mind and meditating this me as though this me is who I am, without recognizing that it's only a concept, and understand something. As long as we have this body, we're going to always have to deal with this body and this mind. It's not bad. It's not wrong. The body is a vehicle. The mind is a tool. Don't judge them. Just know them for what they are and their natures. So you work with the nature of the thing. You know that the nature of fire is hot, so you use it to cook your food. You could also use it to destroy something. You have to utilize the nature of the thing for whatever purpose or intention that you're using it for, not curse it because you may have used it wrong. Don't judge it because you've used it wrong. Wrongly. It's proper English, I guess. Now, Rich, you said, I don't know anything. Abide in that awareness that is not the knowing, but is the being, and see all of this, but in the knowing of it, know it and let it go. Don't take the knowing of it saying, this is me, I am the knower of this, and then stay identified with it. See it for what it is. Utilize whatever is appropriate from within it. Live appropriately. Live appropriately, which is compassionately, which is living and letting live and allowing those what appear to be others to have the same opportunities. Learn how to relate and communicate in such a way that it is a live and let live. If there are others that are ignorant and not having this awareness, learn how to live with that. To the best of your ability, which means predominantly stay in the awareness as the awareness and see the process as it's occurring. Not be at the effect of the process that is occurring as it is occurring. Let go of identification with the I am the body notion, for that is the suffering. Know that you have a body, but you're not the body. You have a mind, but you're not the mind. Live in this awareness as this awareness, which is without beginning and without ending. This pure I amness of being. The nature is pure existence, pure consciousness, and in its realization is bliss. Live in this bliss as happiness. Namaste.
Namaste.